Okay, we'll give her a couple more minutes.
Start at any time. I mean, it doesn't.
Okay.
Sometimes she gets held up.
Okay, we'll give her another minute or two, and then we can get started.
Could ask Amy what she's drinking because it looked good.
It is my favorite tea, and I'm not a huge tea person, but I'm going to tell everybody my secret. It is Bengal Spice by Celestial Seasonings. I don't know if anybody's had it, but
It's very good.
It tastes like it's loaded with sugar and very cinnamony. It is fantastic. It's my new favorite, and it's hard to find. I buy like 5 boxes every time I can find it.
That's probably why it's hard to find. You keep buying it all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a big tea drinker either, but around the holidays, Celestial Seasonings comes out with a sugar cookie sleigh ride tea that just tastes like a sugar cookie, and it's wonderful. And I have like 4 boxes in my cabinet.
That may have to be my next one I get. That's good.
Hey, I just thought I'd mention while we're sitting here, Three Trails has food starting tomorrow with Flying Horse flatbreads.
Yay.
For anybody that doesn't know. So they officially open tomorrow and be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week. So come in and support them and us and have a bite.
Hooray! I heard it was coming. Good, good.
Yeah, very excited. Really, really good people. It's going to be a good relationship.
Right.
Wonderful.
Good to hear. Good to hear stuff like that starting to open up.
Yeah. Hey, Christy, can I ask you a question? So you guys very generously donated the Movies for a Year for our auction last year. And somebody had that for the Faro Theater. Do you have any idea when you guys will be reopening? They asked me the other day about it and I didn't know.
Yeah. Last I heard, Cindy was thinking about like May, possibly June. It just depends on when the theaters start putting stuff out.
Right.
Because there's not much out right now. So we're kind of talking with John Shipp about what's coming down the pike and kind of when would be best to plan. And as of right now, kind of looking at trying to do like maybe Memorial Day time frame. So
okay. Would you all still honor those from last year? I mean,
they purchased to be sure, but I would think so, just because it's not really fair that they were only open for 2 months basically in 2020.
Yeah, and they didn't get them they purchased them like March 14th, so they wouldn't have had them. Yeah, it wouldn't have been open at all. So okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll admit Michelle if she shows up and we can kind of get her caught up here. So we've got a quorum here, so I'm going to officially call to order the meeting of the Independent Square Community Improvement District at 12:09 p.m. First order of business is the administration of the oaths of office. So when you all held your first meeting on September 23rd, you all officially started your first term as directors on the board. So this is just a little official oath of office, just saying that you'll hold up all of the laws of the district. So if you could go ahead and get those signed and notarized and scanned back to me as soon as you're able, that would be wonderful. Next is approving the minutes of the meeting from the January 11th meeting. Do you all have any questions or comments to those minutes? Okay, and when you make your motions, please say your last name. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes, Yvonne Hall.
Okay. Second?
Amy Knipp, second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next is Resolution 2021-02, authorizing and ratifying the first actions of the district. I'll go ahead and go through each of these points, and just feel free to speak up if you guys have any questions or comments on it. We're going ahead and ratifying the actions that you guys all took at previous meetings to appoint officers for the district. We're going to establish the bank as the principal office of the district, seeing as how that's where you guys hold your meetings normally. This is more ceremonial than anything. Normally we have City Hall of each city as the principal office, but since the City of Independence isn't really involved in this too much, we'll go ahead and do the bank as your guys' principal office. I circulated some bylaws for you guys to review, and I redlined them against the bylaws that you guys had circulated earlier in the month. Do you guys have any questions on those bylaws or the changes that were made?
The only question I had, Tracy, was with regards to the section under successor directors process. The original language had stated that this board would nominate, and then it would go before the council and then approved by the mayor.
Yep.
And the red line version removed all of that and simply said they would be appointed by the mayor. And I just wanted clarification on that process so that we know how that flows.
Yes, what happens is it says the representatives of the owners of real property, which is you guys, the board, is going to nominate directors for consideration to the city. So basically what we do is we say, hey, Sean's term is expiring. We want to reappoint him as a successor director. Here's a draft resolution to do that. Please put it on your agenda. And at that point, they can come back and say, no, we don't want to, or yes, this is okay. And then the mayor and city council will approve that resolution. And then you're officially appointed as a successor director.
Okay, so that flow would still come from this board.
Correct.
To the city. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
That was the only question I had.
Okay.
The only other thing I noticed, and I'm fine with it if everybody else is, but we didn't have a vice chair last time, but I'm a vice chair this time. I'm perfectly fine with it.
We normally have a vice chair appointed in case the chair is unable to make the meeting, and in districts where the chair usually conducts the meeting, having a vice chair appointed to conduct that meeting in case they aren't available or attending the meeting is usually what we do. I automatically put your name in there because you've been our point of contact and seem very involved and know what's going on for the most part. If you guys want to put somebody else's name in there, we can certainly amend it and, nominate somebody else as vice chair.
Yeah. and I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
And if you're wanting us to conduct these meetings in the future, then really that office is purely ceremonial.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to do much of anything.
I probably ought to bring this up too. It was right above the, right above the one that Sean brought up about the property owners. And I am not a property owner of any sort within the district. And we kind of touched on that briefly at one of our meetings. And Sean, maybe you could refresh my memory on what we decided on that, but I'm really not a property owner or business owner within the district.
I think, because I think it was the formation of the CID from the property owners that had to be signed off and sent to the city for approval. And I think at that point, board had to be noted in who would be the first board members. Amy's been very active. So we thought it would be okay to keep her in the initial term, but going forward, I think we thought it probably should stay true to the intent and have only a property owner or a business owner or something like that. But it would be okay to have Amy fulfill her 2 years.
That's fine. Or what you could do since you all are property owners, you could designate Amy as your representative.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then that would be okay, where she would represent your interests on the board, even though she does not own any property within the district.
Yay, keep Amy.
I just realized something, and I'm sorry. I was going over the petition, at least the draft of the petition that I have, that was sent to me. And actually, when I was looking over, I didn't realize, but in the petition, Tracy, that I have, the board members are actually elected by the district, not appointed by the mayor. So I can request the finalized petition from the city and see if that would. You have it. You have the finalized petition. Under appointment of directors, successor directors are actually elected by the district. So we may need to make that change in the bylaws.
Okay. We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we can approve the bylaws as written, and if we need to amend them, we can amend them at our next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the bylaws? I wanted to bring up in Article 1, Section 2, records, the district shall keep correct and complete books of the records. As part of our administrative duties, we keep a full minute book on your behalf. That includes all minutes, all agendas and notices posted, all resolutions passed, all organizational documents, anything that has to do with the sales tax election, all of those documents we keep on your behalf. And they are available to you whenever you want. I can set up electronic access to those so you can download them and print them off for your edification if you'd like. But if you guys need any of those records, you just let us know.
That's great.
Okay. Let me get back to where we were here. Okay. Next, Section 2, appointment of officers. We have your initial slate as Sean as chair and executive director, Yvonne as vice chair, Amy as secretary, and Brian as treasurer. Do you guys want to make any changes to those, or do you want to keep those as your officers for the rest of your year?
We'll keep them. Okay,
great. Ratification of prior actions, Section 3 is just ratifying everything you guys have done prior to this meeting and all of the minutes that you took. Designation of principal office, we went over that. Appointment of legal counsel. If you guys want to take a look at the engagement letter and let us know if you have any questions on that, we can address those now.
Okay, we're good with those. No questions.
Great. And like I said earlier, this engagement letter and the flat fee covers all district administration duties, which would include drafting all resolutions and board documents, ensuring notice is posted and in compliance with sunshine requirements, drafting the annual budget every year, all reports to the state, and making sure those are submitted on time. And like I said, we can be as little or as much involved as you all want. And we'll go ahead and just continue to run everything until you all decide what you're most comfortable with. Okay. And we've got the sunshine law policy. Do you guys have any questions on that?
I do not.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, good deal. All right, any other questions on this first resolution, 2021-02? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
John Pye will make a motion to approve.
Second?
Christy Atwood, second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, resolution is passed. Next is resolution 2021-03, adopting a fiscal year 2021 budget. The CID Act states that the CID holds the same fiscal year as the city or county in which it is formed. The City of Independence has a fiscal year ending June 30th, so that will be your guys' fiscal year as well. So your fiscal year will end June 30th, 2021. Providing the sales tax passes, your funds will not start until July 1st, 2021. So you will not get any revenues until your fiscal year 2022. So this budget is just passed to comply with state law. It's all zeros. Do you guys have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
This is Yvonne Hall. I'll motion to approve the fiscal year budget year in 2021 as written.
Second?
Amy
John Pye will
Knipp,
second.
second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes. Next item is a discussion item for the sales tax election update. So far, so good. Everything's going well. The election board is taking care of everything for the sales tax election. They are getting ready to post notice of the election in the Independence Examiner. So that's the next step. And then they will be mailing the ballots to all registered voters within the district, I think next week, by the end of next week.
Yes.
So everything is on schedule for that. Megan, do you have anything else you want
No,
to
just
add?
in between the last meeting and this meeting, we did have a minor, not really, I won't call it a hiccup. The election board was a little bit hesitant about our scheduling. I'm sure you guys heard about this, but I thought I'd give a rundown. I called Tammy and Brad Constance, their attorney. We worked that out because there's so few registered voters within the district, and you guys are going to do a lot of voter outreach to let them know that this is a sales tax election and that there's a municipal election that's, also occurring later. They are totally fine with it, and they were happy to work with us, and so that all worked out great. So we didn't have to move the election, which was good.
Good. Thank you for making that call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Scott, we work with Scott and Tammy a lot. They're good people. So I'm glad that worked out. And yeah, it worked good.
Yeah, and just so you know, whenever they are doing these publications and mailing, they are running all of their language past us before
Yes.
they send it out. So we have a strong hand in everything that's going out. They're just taking care of the minutia.
Right.
Since they are the election authority.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned public outreach. This goes to the board. This question goes to the board. Do we have anything on the schedule for any information or marketing or public meetings, or are we just going to let it ride?
Now, in past board meetings, we thought about, since there's so few people, I think there's 45. We thought we would just divvy up the names, and whoever knew whoever would make the call and just talk through kind of the initiative, what we're trying to do, and ask for their vote.
Okay.
Well, we just didn't think mailing with so few people. We thought it was very manageable with just calls and just a personal contact.
Okay, so that's already been done. Apparently I missed that.
No, I mean, no, we have the list of voters. We have gotten that from Tammy at the election board,
Okay.
but we haven't had a conversation of who's calling who yet.
Okay.
I think we were going to do that at this meeting.
Okay.
We wanted to do something that's close to the election, so it didn't happen with too much time in between, and the registered voter would forget about what they're supposed to do.
Okay, well, when she mentioned that it was going out next week, that's why I kind of thought, well, what's in the works here?
Yep. And hopefully we'll determine that today.
Okay.
Well, if you guys want to discuss that, now would be a good time to do so.
Do we have the list yet?
We do. Yeah, we do have the list. And kind of whatever we want to do. I did email it out to everybody because I just wanted to, out of respect for everybody on that list, I didn't want it out to the general public. But I have the list, and definitely I can email it out to all the board members. And however we want to divvy up the list, I mean, I'm open to suggestions of whatever you guys want to do.
I know Austin Conley had offered to reach out since he helped form this.
Yep. And Austin, he does have the list too. He got the list early on. He's been very, very instrumental in getting all of the CID, pushed through also.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yvonne, is it in a Google Doc or anything to where we could go in and then sign our name next to people that we would call?
I have it in an Excel spreadsheet.
And we know most of the answers to the questions, but maybe a FAQ sheet might be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you all want to email any FAQs that you can think of, I'd be happy to compile those for you and send them out to help while you're calling.
Great.
Okay. So then how does everybody want to come up with a few FAQs, or do we have one person initiating the FAQs? How do we want to do that? Or we can just list kind of the nuts and bolts of what the CID, what it's trying to do, what we're asking from the voter, and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. What's the percentage? Who pays it? What's the money go for?
Mm-hmm.
And we did create an FAQ during the initial petition, so I can send that to you.
Oh, okay.
So you've got a lot of that information already.
Okay.
Great.
Maybe.
Okay, so Jeff, do you want to send that to the board? Okay, so the FAQ, so that would be involved property owners, right? Does it talk about property owners as
not really. It was just more of a, kind of a informational, what is this, what will this do? What's the purpose, that type of thing.
Okay, so you think it's general enough for this purpose too?
Well, you can definitely, use it to springboard off of.
Okay.
It's not real in depth. It was trying to be, very easy, but answer those specific questions.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll send that out to you guys just with a, we should include this or maybe not that, but it's somewhere to start.
Okay.
I could also use that as a springboard and add general questions about this election and what the election is, because people may not know exactly what they're voting on or how to vote correctly. So we can include that information. So if they ask those questions when you call, you'll have those answers available.
It might be helpful to have something put together that we could, if somebody says, do you have anything you can send me, like an email, the attachment that we could send and say, here's the basics, along with kind of a script for what, we should say or not say, you know what I mean? Like just kind of, so everybody's hearing the same thing, no matter who they talk to.
Yep.
We can easily put something together. And at the end of this, I have just a short PowerPoint to show you guys, just giving a general overview of CID and what this covers. And that might generate some, if during that raises a question that you think, we need to address to voters, just let us know and we can write that down. So.
So Tracy and Megan, that's something that you'll put together then, that doc.
Sure, yeah. If you want to go ahead and send us the FAQ you already have started, we will revise as necessary. And let's shoot on having that complete by end of business Tuesday. Does that sound good? It'll give you guys a few days before ballots are mailed to get in touch with people.
Okay.
I believe they're going to mail them on Wednesday. So it'll give them a few days before they receive them in the mail. If you'd like to shoot for Friday, we can most definitely do that, or Monday, whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Your PowerPoint presentation may well cover this, but I think that information sheet probably should include that this organization is run by a board of directors and the names of those directors, so that there's no misconception that this is a city function or run by any particular entity.
Company. Mm-hmm.
A company.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. If you just send those on over, we can get that
Tuesday
started.
okay, or should we have it by Friday? What do you think?
I mean, sooner is better, but I think Tuesday is manageable if that's what it comes down to. So if you say no later than Tuesday.
Yeah,
then
however
that's fine.
soon you all want it, we can make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Should we shoot for Friday?
I don't know. Couldn't hurt.
Okay.
That would be
If it's
great.
possible, I think it's
Yeah.
probably better.
It's definitely possible. Yeah.
And then I will shoot the list of names out to everybody. I don't know. Does everybody just want to go through the list? And I mean, I don't mind taking the list back and consolidating it and assigning who has what, but, or I can send the list to, I mean, I don't know, however you want to work it.
Can I ask a question? We're not planning to call every person on the list necessarily, right? We want to just kind of touch base with those people that we know, that we would know individually.
Yeah, the list won't have phone numbers.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Oh, okay.
voter registration doesn't generally have your,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the target is to go through the list,
find out who you guys know.
see how many of those people we know, and those are the people
We'll call.
we reach out to because we have a
Okay.
connection with them.
Okay.
And here's something to keep in mind for a sales tax election. You do not need the majority of total voters in order to pass it. You only need the majority of people who vote. So there may be 45 voters, but if only 3 people actually vote and send in the ballot, you just need the majority of 3 people to say yes.
Okay.
And I think that's why we decided to do this approach, right? We could reach out to people that we were comfortable with,
Okay.
so we could have good communication with them and get positive votes.
Yeah.
And the spreadsheet shows who has voted. Is that correct?
It will not.
It
No,
won't.
it's just who's eligible to vote.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because the election will not occur until March 23rd, and the election board counts the votes and certifies the votes. So we will not know who voted which way. They will just give us a number that voted yes and a number that voted no.
No, I know, I realize that, but I wondered if the records will show if people have voted in the past.
Oh, no.
It will not that either. Okay, so we don't have any idea who's a voter and who's not.
Yes, who has voted normally in general elections or whatever. Yeah, we won't have any idea of their normal participation level, but this is different than driving to the ballot box. You know, this is filling out a piece of mail and mailing it back.
Yeah.
So, you know, you get a different type of voter turnout for these types of elections.
Sure.
It's just a matter of making sure that we have somebody voting, right? That's kind of what we run into with these things, is like, we just want to make sure we have voters.
Mhm.
So that's just, one of the points of the calls is just kind of encouraging people to make sure that you do send back in that ballot. We need people to vote.
Mm-hmm. We had one district where we were voting to terminate it, and we had to call property owners to ensure they were going to vote, because if we didn't receive any ballots back, then we couldn't terminate the district. There was nothing we could do. So we want to make sure we have participants.
There were quite a few businesses, and we maybe got two ballots back.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and email the spreadsheet that I have out to everybody. I guess I'm still not, do we feel, I mean, I think we need to at least determine who's calling who, so we don't hound. Maybe the 10 people that we actually call, we don't want to hound them to death by having 3 or 4 of us call them.
Right, that doesn't necessarily need to
15
be.
or 20, I don't even think 20 people would probably call, maybe
Yeah.
5.
Amy's suggestions is probably the best. Put it on a Google Drive. Everybody would have access to it. Put your name beside who you're comfortable calling, and that way you know so-and-so's already got that person.
Yeah.
So you don't take a lot of extra effort at sending everything back to one person who's got to reach back out and say, 3 people are trying to get a hold of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a Google Drive, so does anybody have Google Drive? To you? Okay.
And
I know
like Tracy,
Austin, when they were doing, Austin and Jeff were doing a lot of the legwork. I mean, they contacted, seen these people face to face, and he was willing to handle as much of this communication as
Austin
we
alone.
wanted to let him. I mean,
I will say the majority of voters in the district, we've already talked to.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be new information to them.
and it's like Tracy said, I mean, it's good. I'm glad you guys are maintaining a good dialogue with your registered voters, because they will have a hand. Anything that we want to do within this district, they're going to have a hand in. You know, eventually, if you want to add property, remove property, they're the ones that are going to be in control, not necessarily in control of these decisions, but you know, so it's good to keep maintaining a good dialogue and make sure that you guys are just being upfront. That's a fantastic plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a plan.
All right. Unless you guys have anything else you want to add, we'll move to the next discussion point. Your district insurance. I see in a previous meeting, you all had discussed that the district will eventually need to purchase insurance, but you didn't want to do so until you had a revenue stream. Is that correct?
Is correct.
Okay. We have an insurance carrier that we go through normally for these, because it is a very different kind of policy to cover these districts than it is for anything else. So these policies cover your actions as officers and directors of the board, and any general liability that would occur. You also have the option to add an automotive coverage, which sounds very odd for this, but it would cover any type of automotive claims if anything happened in furtherance of your business for the district. So if you were driving to a property owner or registered voter in your car on district business, then this insurance would cover that. And those policies normally run around $2,000 a year for coverage. So whenever you all are ready, just let me know and I can get that process started. Any questions on that?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Next, discussion on the cooperative agreement. I saw that you all had discussed this a little bit at a previous meeting as well. I'm assuming the agreement will be between you all, the city, and the ISA, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I think what we intended is the funds that flow into the CID would then be managed, and the projects will be managed by ISA.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Okay. And when we get to the point of those funds coming in and the sales tax, being imposed, we can set up a direct deposit with the Missouri Department of Revenue. So that will go straight into the ISA's account. They can open up a separate account for the district if they want, or set it up in their general fund and just keep a separate ledger. That's up to you guys, however you want to handle it. In that cooperative agreement, we could also build in any administrative fee for the ISA for handling those funds for you. And they can produce your budgets and annual reports, or we can work in conjunction with the ISA to do those. We're very familiar with working with those entities to take care of that kind of stuff. So we can get to that whenever we get around to the agreement. Do you guys have any type of timeline that you're wanting to stay on to get that agreement in place? So we normally try to get that done as soon as possible, but I know the ISA is having a couple of issues at the moment, so.
I don't know, I mean, I think,
It would
I don't know.
go
Yeah, I
between
don't,
us and the city, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a separate thing? I said, or no?
I don't know. I guess, Tracy, we're a little confused about the agreement.
Okay.
Are you talking about the agreement between ISA and the CID, or the agreement between the CID and the city?
It would be an agreement between all three of you on how you all agree that the CID is going to run.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one document, not two documents.
Correct.
And that's generally how they work, because the city essentially formed the CID, they're a party to it. And in a lot of these situations, the city has more of a hand in these. And so they're the ones that are doing the administration of the funds. And then you have your, normally other than the CID, you have the developer who's building the projects, right? Well, in this case, we'll have you all three working together, and the city won't be as big a part of this. But additionally with that is, how we work through disbursements of the CID funds. We'll have a disbursement form at the end, and we want to make sure that the ISA is fully aware that, these can only be spent on public things. So while we're building these projects, we need to have good documentation of invoices as to what public improvements or public services these went to. And so this just kind of lays it all out to make sure everybody's on the same page, and this, the city knows what's going on. So we'll draft this, and obviously we'll run it past you guys, and we can discuss it at a meeting, page by page as to, how this all fits together. But this is very standard.
Okay. So it was my understanding, though, that the CID board has to direct the funds to ISA to manage and fulfill the project or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So how can that happen if the funds are going straight to ISA?
I guess if we direct that,
It's
is
in
what's
the,
going to happen, and we have direct.
the cooperative
Yeah.
agreement.
So
Okay.
we can set out to where, they make requests for the funds that you guys are essentially in charge, right? And then they have to fill out a disbursement request, and then you can approve those funds to make sure that we're staying within the making sure it's legal. We have run into issues in the past where we have a lot of different incentive mechanisms like layered on top of each other, and so things get convoluted. This is a little bit easier. We'll set it out on front to know that CIDs are specific to public improvements and public services. So we won't have as much of a problem with that, but it does make sure that we are overseeing everything. The board is in control of making sure that we're within the legality of the CID statute.
Actually, I think it's so much easier, don't you think?
Yeah.
Instead of this board meeting, then the next board meeting, and yeah, it makes a whole lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. And your expenses can be handled however you all want. We have some CIDs who have a resolution to pass and approve expenses to be paid every time that there's an invoice, or just a verbal okay from the board saying, hey, you guys can go ahead and pay this invoice on behalf of the board, and the ISA would take care of managing all of your revenues and your expenditures for you.
I think originally, this was the whole birth of the CID was to promote, to help our Square Association. And, the CID requires a board, so that's us.
Mhm.
But originally that's kind of what we wanted. We just didn't realize that we could do that all in one document. But unless other board members have something to say to the contrary, I think the original intent was that we would fulfill the duties of keeping the CID active, but the funds would actually pass through this and go to ISA to do the projects that they had, since they have the design team and the other teams that are working on beautifications of the square or whatever else is taking place. And that way it's outside of us to have to plan those as well. Or, I don't even really like the idea of approving each project. Personally, I'm more in favor of allowing the funds to pass through to the ISA and let them manage it. But again, if another board member has something else to say, that's fine. I'm not trying to speak for everyone. I just think that would be the simplest thing to have happen, is that our job is to keep the CID active and alive, but ISA is really the one receiving those funds and spending them according to whatever fits their plans.
And as we go throughout the year and Gilmore and Bell has to draft the budget or draft these reports to the state, we can review these revenues and expenditures and ensure that the ISA is spending the monies as the petition says it can and within CID statutes, and doing it in the board's best interest. So it just adds a layer on top of everything to make sure the money is spent correctly and on the correct things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously there may come a day when none of us are involved in any of these things, and we would like, we would like to keep some form of protection. Obviously, I think that's what you just, if I'm understanding, that's what you just said.
Yep.
Or the CID at some time in the future may not have to pass those funds through if something goes awry on the ISA board.
Yep, as district council, we are here to protect the CIDs and the board's best interests.
Okay.
Right.
So, and you guys will always have the ability to cease the ISA getting the revenues. If you wanted to open up the district's own bank account, the Department of Revenue would start sending them to whatever bank account you wanted to. So you have the flexibility to change these things as you would.
Okay. I think that's what we originally thought, is that it would go into a CID bank account and we would have to transfer it to ISA. You're saying we could just go ahead and set it up to go straight to ISA.
Correct.
So much nicer.
But I think I'll recommend for ISA that they do have a separate account. For that, I just think accounting purposes, it'll be easier.
That's probably our, Tracy, would you agree? That's probably our personal preference, is to keep these funds completely separate. It's just easier. We know they're not being bundled with anything else. We can segregate them if we need to. That's the preference, and that's what we suggest.
Yeah, we have some districts who open up their own bank accounts, and when it's time for me to draft the budgets, they just send me bank statements, which has all the financial information and all the information I need. And some, they roll it into their city funds and they just keep a separate ledger. So I have to rely on the documentation they send me and trust that it's correct. And I can't verify anything because obviously they're not going to send me their city bank account information and all of their revenues and expenditures. So it's easier if they open up their own account, a separate account for this, but we understand if that's not possible.
Right.
And it is customary for the administrator of the funds to usually take a 1 to 1.5% administrative fee for these. That's up to you guys on how you want to work that out with the ISA. If they charge a fee or not, they don't have to, but that's usually taken off the top of the revenues. Whatever revenues you get in, they'll just take off 1% or 1.5% of that off the top to administer your account. And that's built into the cooperative agreement.
Yes.
So is that cooperative agreement something that you all would draft for on our behalf? And then does the city have to approve that, or they just sign off on it? Or
the city has to pass an ordinance approving the cooperative agreement and they have to sign off on it. So we would draft it and negotiate it with the city and the ISA and make any changes. So the city would have to approve it via ordinance or resolution. The board would have, the CID board would have to approve it via resolution, and the ISA would have to approve it, you know, however you guys hold your meetings, whether it's resolution or just, you know, in a meeting verbally approving that with the ISA. So all three parties have to approve it in their formal capacity, and then it is signed and in effect.
And because the city is not as involved in this one, I mean, we don't foresee any issues coming from the city, right? They're not administering this, you know, the money's not flowing through them. So we shouldn't see any problems there.
Mm-hmm. And it's my understanding, based on reading your guys' past minutes, is the ISA is going to be fronting the monies for any incurred expenses until you get a revenue stream, correct?
That was the idea pre-COVID, but yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
Just gotta make sure they have the funds to do that.
What we can do is set up the budget to where, you know, you would get your administrative fee coming off at the top, and then any monies left over would go to reimburse the ISA for any incurred expenses prior to revenues. That way we zero out the budget every year, or we could keep like a $5,000 cushion in there, however you guys decide you want to do it. That's our next topic of discussion. So we can figure out exactly how you all want to set it up. Any other questions on the cooperative agreement? Okay, we'll move to our next topic, projected sales tax revenues. So since the fiscal year for this district is June 30th, by CID statute, you all are required to meet at least once a year and pass an annual budget for the ensuing fiscal year. And this has to happen no later than, within
6 months.
No later within 30 days of the beginning of your fiscal year, which means that you all will have to meet every single year at least once a year sometime in May. And at this annual meeting, you'll have to appoint officers for the next fiscal year. So you guys can shake up your officer holdings at that point, and you will have to pass your budget for the next fiscal year. So this upcoming May, you guys will have to meet and pass your budget for fiscal year 2022. Since we have our revenues starting to come in then, we will have to try and make our best guess as to how much we're going to collect so that we can make a best approximation for this budget and submit that to the city. Pursuant to the bylaws, this budget has to be sent to the city for their review by the end of March. So the city has to review the budget. They don't have to comment on it. They don't have to revise it. We just have to send it to them and prove that we involve the city and show them what we think the revenues and expenditures are going to be. And then the district has to pass that budget within 30 days before their fiscal year ends. So that budget is not necessarily set in stone, especially for this first year. We can amend this budget at any point. Normally, if your actual revenues exceed what we budgeted, during the next annual meeting, we will amend the budget to more closely represent what actually happened, so that if the state auditor comes in and audits the district, we can show them, hey, our revenues that we had budgeted for did not exceed our actual revenues. We knew exactly what we were doing. You guys have any questions on that? I know that was a lot to take in.
So in effect, we would, we would need to meet at least, I mean, we plan to meet more often than once a year, but really March is the more important meeting if that's when we need to have our budget done. As opposed to May.
Yeah, well, you don't have to meet in order to draft the budget. This can be done completely via email. It does not have to be open to the public or an official board action. So that can all be done via email, preparing the budget, what we think our revenues are going to be. By the end of March, we have to submit that proposed budget or what we think it's going to be to the city, just so that they know, hey, we're going to take this up. This is what we think. Let us know if you have any comments or questions. And between then, we can change things if we want. Between the end of March and your meeting in May, we can revise things as we need to. That budget to the city is just basically to CYA and to get a very good approximation of what we think. And if we amend the budget or change it between that time point before the board approves it, we can just send any changes to the city and just let them know, hey, we made this change. This is what we're going to approve at our meeting.
Okay.
At your annual meeting in May is when you approve the budget for the next fiscal year. This is our best guess of what we're going to get and what we're going to spend. And if at our meeting in 2022, we discover, hey, we got in a lot more money than we thought. Therefore, we are reimbursing the ISA more than we thought. So this expense is higher. Then at that point, we would amend the budget to more closely match what exactly happened.
And Tracy brings that up because the state auditor anytime can come in and request to audit the district. And this has happened in the past. The state auditor has put out a very large document that audited a bunch of districts within the state and really gave them, a ranking or a rating of how they think they're doing. Mm-hmm. So we take it very seriously that we make sure that, if they come in to audit us, we can show that we've stayed within the statute. We've very accurately described exactly, what the revenues and what our expenses have been. So they can't, come in and say, come back negatively on the board and then negatively on the city as well. So.
As Megan is our legislative tracker in the firm, and as she can attest, these state auditor reports do have ramifications at the legislature level. So they think these boards are not managing their funds or letting the municipalities know what they're doing, they will change the statute and give us a new layer that we need to follow.
Tracy's right. I mean, even right now, I'm tracking a number of bills that, there are a lot of people that don't necessarily like the way economic development incentives are done in the state. And so Tracy's right. They use these reports, for, bad actors. And then they go to change the statute. So, and that was actually the case almost last year. Why, this was one of the CIDs that we're really, really fast tracking to make sure we got it done before the governor vetoed that particular bill. So yeah, there's always a chance. So yeah, as long we like to stay in compliance, we like to be doing everything right. So yeah, just to make sure we're keeping them happy too.
So basically what I need from you all within the next couple of weeks is an estimate of what you think the district will receive in revenues for fiscal year 2022.
What does Sean? They probably would.
And then from there, we can discuss via email back and forth regarding the expenditures and how you all want to set up the budget for this next fiscal year.
I can say, I don't know if this will change or, pre-COVID, we were hoping for between 80 and 85 based on previous years' numbers.
Okay.
It almost cut it in half.
I don't have any clue what we would be looking at now,
To be quite honest, in reviewing sales tax reports for districts that were in effect pre-COVID and their sales tax numbers during COVID, they maybe only went down 5 or 10%.
Right.
There was not as much of an impact.
Yeah,
We're an
definitely did not happen
exception.
here.
I will say we're an exception, but almost, you're correct.
Mhm.
Every other downtown that I work with, that's about all that they changed.
Yeah, it was very surprising that it did not change more than that. We were pretty shocked,
Right.
but pleasantly so, you know?
We've had a lot more closures. I would at least cut that number in half, probably.
Okay.
And
And
then I don't know if we cut it in half again because it's July to December what we're planning, or if you're thinking 2022.
it's actually July to June 30.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's still a full year.
And something to note that it takes 2 to 3 months for those sales tax revenues to come into DOR and then to the bank account. So even though the sales tax will start collecting July 1, you probably will not see a first deposit in the bank account until September or October. So we're going to have, you know, instead of a full 12 months in fiscal year 2022, we're probably going to have 9 or 10 months to play with.
Okay. And the hope is, I think, you know, I think the hope is that we largely return to normal throughout the summer as the summer progresses.
Mhm.
And so it's a very good chance by the time we get into fall and winter planning that we're running full steam.
Yeah, and you guys have a holiday season right in the middle of your fiscal year, which is nice. A lot of those that have fiscal years ending December 31st, it's kind of a crapshoot on what happens with their budget every year because they're not sure what's going to happen. So you guys will have a good, nice round year to try and get an idea of what each fiscal year is going to look like.
It's actually pretty good timing.
So if you all are comfortable with it, based on the discussion, I think maybe we'll estimate our revenues for this first fiscal year at around $50,000 or $60,000.
I think that's a pretty good number.
We'll base it on that. So I can get a budget drafted and send it out to you guys to review and provide any comments on. And like I said, once we start receiving those revenues, we can amend that budget at any time, as many times as we want, to make it a little bit more realistic to what we're actually seeing.
Okay.
So we'll have to pass, like I said, this is due to the city by March 31, and we have to pass in May. So we've got a little bit of time, you know, just not so much time to get it to the city this time around. Any questions about that or budgets?
I think we're good there.
Okay. If not, I'm going to pass this over to Megan.
All right.
Your screen, Megan, or do I need to make you a host?
No, I can share it. So I just put together a short PowerPoint, and this is just a really general CID overview, how it's formed, what is it, how's it governed, etc. So if you know this and you don't want to hear it, just yell at me to skip it. That's fine. I will not be offended. And
This
bear
is
with
why
me.
I came to this meeting.
It's for my presentation. I feel so bad. This is so much pressure.
Okay,
bear with
Megan,
me. Yeah.
I've made you the host if you want to share your screen.
I feel so special. Bear with me in terms of I live in the boondocks. And so if I start lagging behind, somebody tell me. I did update my internet recently, a year later. I finally was able to get something better. Hold on, sorry. I'm gonna have to, where is my start presentation?
I think it's on the bottom right.
I know, why am I not? Oh, here we go, sorry. I couldn't see it due to my laptop being in the way. Okay, so community improvement districts. So what are CIDs? So a CID is a political subdivision with the power to impose a sales tax, a special assessment, or real property tax to fund public improvements and services. They are created by a city or a county following the submission of a petition. Sorry. The petition is generally filed with the municipality clerk, be it the county clerk or the city clerk.
Hey, Megan, you're still on.
Yeah.
On your
I'm still
slide.
on. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you guys see it now? Let me know.
Well, we can see it. I just see that you're on your first slide.
Oh, I should be on the second slide by now. Has it not changed? I'm sorry, you guys. My internet is embarrassing.
You may need to share a different screen.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's only shared. It's on her extended.
Okay, what do you see, Tracy? What are you seeing now?
Yeah, now I see how's the CID formed.
So weird. I don't know why that's now.
Yeah, it's just showing your PowerPoint.
Okay, well, I'll just go through it like this. Can you guys see it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
I don't know why it's not doing that. Okay. So a petition is filed with the municipality clerk. We then publicize that there's going to be a public hearing that has to be held within 45 days of receipt of the verified petition. The publication occurs once a week for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing. And then we also mail notice out not less than 15 days prior to the hearing. After the public hearing, the municipality adopts an ordinance approving the petition and creating the CID. Can you see the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So a CID is governed generally by between 5 and 30 directors, which is always, I always thought that 30 number was ridiculous. Obviously, this district has 7. So they can be elected or appointed as approved by the district. Our qualifications are pretty general as set forth in the statute. They have to be at least 18 years old, an owner of real estate or a business operating in the CID, or a registered voter residing in the CID, and they have to be compliant with any other qualifications that are set forth in the petition. The statute does provide for the removal for cause of a board member by 2/3 vote of the rest of the board. We also have to give notice for removal given to the board before we do that. Believe it or not, we have run into that before, which is interesting. So here are a list of financeable infrastructure projects. So this is a pretty laundry list. I think this would be good to include in our FAQs. So I can go through all these: pedestrian or shopping malls, parks, lawns, trees, landscaping. We can do an aquarium with CID funds, which is interesting. Any of your infrastructure, so your sidewalks, streets, utility, drainage, parking lots, streetscape, benches, awnings, canopies, bus stops, paintings, music, childcare facilities. And this CID was a blighted area, so it can also pay the costs to rehabilitate structures. So that's something different than not every CID has. Not every CID has a blight finding. So additionally, the CID can finance public services. With the municipality's consent, you can prohibit or restrict vehicular and pedestrian access and traffic on the streets. You can promote tourism, promote business activity with marketing, develop and retention. That's always something that's kind of fun. You can contract or conduct economic and planning purposes. Really, we have a pretty broad spectrum of services and improvements that CID funds can go towards. And again,
we do have some CIDs that pay for private security.
Yes, that's true. That's
to
true.
Control the boundaries of the district. So if you think that the police aren't doing their job, you can hire your own security people to patrol your district.
A lot of what we see is obviously, like, we see a lot of landscaping, a lot of beautification costs, benches, trash receptacles getting put in, snow removal, a lot like that, a lot of snow removal services. I believe we had one district that considered putting public Wi-Fi in, but that gets kind of complicated. It's kind of interesting how, you know, you have to make sure that it's a public improvement. It's solely for the benefit of the public. It doesn't, you know, no private businesses. It's a fine line, but that's kind of what makes it fun for me. Mm-hmm. I think Tracy too. So there's that. And then, okay, here's just, this is our final slide, but we just kind of wanted to touch on what the ongoing compliance is with the CID board. Tracy touched on this, our annual budget. We obviously have to get that passed every year. So like she said, that gets sent to the governing body of the city that formed you, so the City of Independence. We also have to file an annual report. So within 120 days after the end of the fiscal year, we must submit an annual report to the clerk and also to the Department of Economic Development. That report includes what services you provided, the revenues that you collected, your expenditures made. Not filing this report can get very expensive, as Tracy has told you guys. So that's something that obviously we take care of as a part of our engagement. And that's something obviously we'll send you guys to review as well, so you can see it. And then also an annual audit. So within 6 months at the end of your fiscal year, you are required to do an audit. This can be done by us, or it can also be done by an outside third-party CPA. And then also you guys are also subject at any time to the state auditor coming in, as they would, you know, any other agency or political subdivision of the state. So that's pretty quick and dirty. I mean, we can get into, you know, exactly what the petition consisted of and other things, but I didn't want to bore you guys too much with all of that.
Something to note for these annual report and annual audits, the report to DED that is due, I normally work with the finance director of the city, or in this case would be the treasurer of the ISA or whoever's taking care of the funds, to get all of the revenues and expenditures for the previous fiscal year. And I basically draft the report to the state auditor at the same time, because I have to know all of the gross revenues and gross expenditures to report to the DED. This is important. Number one, only CIDs are required to do this. Transportation development districts are not. So a lot of TDDs get surprised when their report to the state auditor is due 2 or 3 months after that, and they forget to file it. Well, the legislature passed, I think it was about 2 years ago, that every single day you are late filing your report to the state auditor, the district is subject to a fine of up to $500 per day that they are late. So since we are taking control of this and basically drafting it 2 to 3 months in advance, the CID will never have to worry about this late fee. And since we're taking care of submitting all of that for you, it will all be included in the minute book. You will have a PDF that you can review that will show every single report that was submitted to the city clerk, the Department of Economic Development, and the Missouri State Auditor's Office.
It makes it fun. You know, this part makes it fun, but it's also kind of, it's comforting, you know, these districts are, you know, being done correctly, and they're not just, you know, collecting taxpayers' tax dollars, right, to then spend it. You know, there is a checks and balances process. So, I mean, it may be a pain, but it is, you know, good that we have these things. The state has set this up. So, we don't necessarily, I don't know, Tracy, how you feel about it. I don't mind it terribly, but
And it was also fortuitous timing that your district was set up in August, which is right at the beginning of your fiscal year 2021, because you don't have to worry about any of these reports until October of this year and December of this year. So you didn't miss any deadlines whatsoever because you were formed right at the beginning of your fiscal year. Because even if you are, if your CID was formed 2 days before your fiscal year ended, that state auditor is going to count those 2 days as operation, and you have to report your financials for those 2 days. So this really worked out for you guys.
I'm thinking that it worked out really well that we have you all.
Well, we've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah. That's great.
And CIDs are my personal. One, this shows my nerdiness, but CIDs are my favorite economic development tool. So I like doing those.
They're the most straightforward, which is helpful.
They are. They are. Everything else is a little bit convoluted, but CIDs, they are straightforward.
Well, I can remember working on and looking at this back in 2008. So it's very exciting that it's here and it's actually getting up and going. So very fun.
Good deal. Something to note for the state auditor, this may never come up, but I just want to put it in the back of your mind. If the CID ever decides to issue bonds, it would be very good idea and is usually drafted into the bond documents that the state auditor report is made and completed by a third-party CPA, that you have somebody else coming in and doing a complete financial overview of everything. I don't think this is necessary if you guys aren't doing bonds, because we can very easily look at the bank statements and see what's happening. But whenever you get to issuing bonds for project and paying back debt service and you get a trustee involved in all of this, it's just easier to bring in a third party to make sure everything is done correctly. And like I said, usually the bonds dictate that a third party has to come in and take a look at the financials every year.
They override everything.
Mm-hmm. You guys have any other questions for us?
Anything else?
I think that's been very thorough.
Very good, great.
Sorry if we bored you.
Do you guys want
No.
It's very helpful. Thank you for all.
I'm relieved you guys are,
Yes,
are involved in this with us.
we all are, yeah.
Yes, yes.
We're happy to help whenever. And the annual fee that you all pay us it covers any random questions you have. So you're not going to get charged hourly for any random question you have. You just email us and we'll help you with whatever you need.
I will tell you what I tell all of our clients: call us early, call us often.
Yeah.
You ever have a question, just pick up the phone and call us. We're not going to nickel and dime you for picking up the phone, and we'd rather be aware of any potential issue as early as possible so we can fix it. Mm-hmm. So I'm always open. Tracy's always open. We will get back to you as soon as we can. So yes, please call us.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Do you guys want to go ahead and set your next meeting now, or would you like me to send around an email in a few weeks to gather schedules?
Wednesdays at noon, I think, have been working for everyone. Is that correct? Or would anyone like to amend that? Or
No, I think this is pretty good.
we've been doing Wednesdays at noon, so I think that would be fine.
Okay. Do you want to meet again in April, or do you want to wait until your annual meeting requirement in May to meet again?
So if we met in April, would we have the election results back by that time?
Yes, we would. We are going to probably get the certification of the election the week of March 23rd.
They're pretty quick. Their turnaround.
Yeah, within 10 days, this is something That's good to bring up, actually. Within 10 days of the election being completed, we have to send notice to the Department of Revenue that they need to start collecting this tax. So this notice includes a map of the boundaries, your guys' names and contact information for the Department of Revenue so they know who the board is, a list of all the taxing entities along with you guys within the boundaries of the CID, and also a list of all the businesses within the CID. If you guys wanted to get started on that, it would be super helpful. I can send an email out with all this so you're not bombarded with it right now. But basically, we have to send a list to DOR of this is the business, this is its address, and this is its Missouri sales tax ID number, so that Missouri can check their records against it and make sure we're collecting tax from every single person that we need to be. So that's going to be due to the Department of Revenue by the end of March. And we need to get that submitted. They do give us a little bit of leeway on the businesses where we can supplement that up to 45 days before the tax comes into effect. So that would be in mid-May. So we could supplement that if a new business opens up, but that is something that we're going to have to take care of.
Is the board responsible for reporting every time a new business opens in the district?
Do we report every time a new business opens up? Is that
Yes.
something we let you know about?
Yes, we
Yes.
also need to let DOR know every time a business opens within the district so they can collect the tax. Basically, they're telling us, hey, you're responsible for getting your own money. You know, if you don't tell us, we're not going to do the work for you. If
Right,
you
and this
need
gets-
monies, you let us know.
And this gets messed up. I mean, I help administer a relatively small district in another town. And I mean, that got screwed up where one entity they were not collecting the sales tax for one entity. So, I mean, and that really made a difference. So, I mean, yeah, it does. Even with small districts, you know, these things can get screwed up pretty easily. So, you know, we just need to be on top of it.
And DOR
No, I don't think so.
normally notifies these businesses that they're going to start collecting this tax and they need to start charging this tax. But because we know how effective government bureaucracy tends to be, we are going to be overly cautious. And when we get, the DOR will send us a list back of all the businesses that they have reconciled with the list that we give them. And we'll also mail them notice that, hey, starting July 1st, you need to enter this into your system and start collecting this tax and sending this extra tax along with your normal ones to DOR. And then DOR will separate that 1% tax from all of the monies that they receive and send it to the district.
Right, because again, we've started doing, because this has gotten screwed up before too, where DOR didn't accurately notify businesses, and so they didn't know to start collecting. So then they didn't start collecting until 2 or 3 months after the sales tax was effective, and then they had to pay, you know, residual sales tax collections, and that's always crappy. So it's, yeah, so we do that too.
Both Megan and I are just a tiny bit anal retentive, so
I know.
It's, yes.
It normally tends to work in your favor, but if you get annoyed, just let us know and we'll try to back off as much as we can.
No, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so do you guys want to go ahead and meet in April and we can just touch base? We don't have to do any official business. We can just have
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, we're looking at April 7th, 14th, 21st, or 28th. Which would you guys prefer?
Yeah, we typically have been doing the first Wednesday in the month. So,
Okay, so
I would say the 7th, if that works with everybody.
Yep. Let me check my calendar really quick. I think that's fine. And then from there, since we'll have submitted the budget to the city officially by then, we can also just have an official discussion with the board and see if we want to change anything before it is officially adopted at the May meeting. Yep, the 7th looks good.
Hey, Tracy, did you see that Tom asked if the district files a tax return? He asked a question.
I did not. No, they do not. You have no employees, so there's nothing to file.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If you do end up issuing bonds, I believe the CID will need to register for an employer identification number in order to issue bonds. And there will be tax compliance issues that would go into that. But Gilmore and Bell also has a separate tax compliance and compliance services department that takes care of all of that for you.
We're all at Gilmore Bell.
They are your one-stop municipality financial stop.
Oh.
I like to keep it in the family.
It's so funny. I can't ever, I mean, like, if anybody asks me what I do for a living, because I do economic development and I also do the bond side, I mean, it puts people to sleep. It cracks me up. People are always like, why do you do this?
Yeah. Yeah, normally when people ask what I do, just to make it easy, I say I work with cities and small cities and their money. This is what we do, because otherwise it gets into too much minutia that you probably don't care about. All right. You guys got anything else you want to cover today? No?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Yvonne Hall.
Okay. Second?
Second, Amy Knipp.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes and the meeting is officially adjourned at 1:27 p.m.
Thank you.